Apologies for the delay.
Yeah, that's fine, please. Thank you. Good morning once again and welcome everyone. Welcome textilers. In today's training, we will continue from where we stopped, which is actually talking about workloads. Again, my name is Oluwatosi Anishere for the benefit of those that are joining us for the first time. And I'm a mentor with textilers. All right, we know our house rules, but I would like to emphasize again, if you have any question, you can use the raise your hand icon, and we're expected to mute if we're not asking any question. If you have a question or contribution, of course, you can unmute as well as, go ahead to speak or to ask the question or contribute as the case may be. Okay, that's for Azure. You can also use the meeting chat to drop your question if you do not want to speak through the mic. I'll go ahead to read it out and answer any question that you have. Okay, so like I said, we would continue from this core Azure workload products, and we will go ahead to also do labs today. I promised in the last session that I'll be, giving us like a lab guide for us, and this lab guide is already in the files for our own channel. That's the Azure channel. If you go through the files, you would see a folder named Azure Labs. Okay, within that folder, you would see different tasks for different labs that you could get to use. Okay. I don't know if some of us have been able to check. If you check, you can confirm that you have it there. Okay. So last week, or sorry, last class, we went through the Azure Compute Services, where we talked about the virtual machines, app service, container instance, Azure Kubernetes, and I think we stopped at Windows Virtual Desktop, which we were unable to, go in depth to talk about. Okay, so also the lab for container instance, I'm not sure if we did that. So what I'll quickly do is I'll take us through a demo that would walk us through this container instance, and we'll move on from there. So this walkthrough is about deploying Azure Container Instance, and I'm going to bring up a demo quickly because of the time that is fast spent to walk us through this Azure Container Instance. I believe I took us through it the last session. I think I can remember, but however, I can still, just to brush us up, to remind us of that which we have done. I'll bring up this demo for us to look through. So let me bring that up immediately, and you can move from there. So of course, for the container instance, we would go to our Azure Portal and click the container instance. So right now we are trying to add container instance. We'll go ahead to choose our subscription. Don't worry, we did this, it's just for us to go through it one more time. Create the resource group, click OK, then give the container name. So then the region, don't forget the region, so we can get to choose the region. In this instance,
Lost because I don't think you said so far we did 2 classes. I'm sorry to cut you. And this thing you are bringing up is different from, like, I think we stopped at them where you said there are 4 levels to this resource group management, if I'm right.
wow, I'm sure you've missed the class, Kemi. No, we've gone past that stage.
Wow.
So what I'll do is, I think I'll reach out to Foyin so that you can get the video. Probably that's the video you were requesting for,
Yeah.
and so you will get it. We've passed that stage. No wonder you are saying we are slow. I think I now understand you. We are not slow.
I didn't
We
get
only
on the day of the class. I was online and I was finding how to join the class, but there was no class.
that was last week, right?
Not even before last week.
Okay, that's the one for the coaching. That one was communicated for everybody like there's a coaching and mentorship, no class. That was general, not just Azure, all the other platform inclusive.
Okay.
Don't worry, I think I would take responsibility to ensure that that video that was missed is uploaded.
Okay, thank you.
All right, please. Okay, so in that last class, yes, we talked about this workload, we talked about VMs, we talked about app service. We went through the lab to do VM, app service, and the container instance were where we also did container instance. I was only bringing up this demo for us to use as a refresher, just to juggle our memory from where we stopped. Okay, we have actually done it. The lab is just to remind us of what we did in the last class. Like I said, we went to the Azure Portal. From the Azure Portal, we search for the resource container instance, and it brought up to this page you are currently seeing on the screen. Okay. The next thing is to fill the information in order to deploy this container instance, and that's what we are currently looking at. So once you provide the subscription name, the resource group, the container name, the region, we'll go ahead to provide the image. And here, this is the image that was being used. So for the OS type, we have opportunity to use Linux on Windows, and we can just leave it as the default. Once that is done, it brings us to the networking, where we add a DNS label name. Okay, so for this, you can add the name that comes to mind, or any name, just to create this DNS label. By default, it's always on public networking, and we'll leave it that way. Even the ports are already there, we'll also leave it that way. Click review, and this will create the container instance for us. This we did is just to refresh our memory. It tells us your deployment is complete. Once it's complete, and we can get to go to the resource such that we are able to see the container instance. Okay, so this brings us to the page of the container instance, and this was where we stopped. So far so good. Okay, so next year is to talk about the Windows virtual desktop. Okay, now this Windows virtual desktop is actually like what we have here on the screen, is a desktop and app virtualization that runs in the cloud. You can create a full desktop virtualization environment without having to run additional gateway servers. You can publish unlimited host pools to accommodate diverse workload, and you can reduce costs with pooled or multi-session resource. So for this Windows virtual desktop, I think I have a short video that would help us understand better. Don't forget that our training is a blended learning approach. It's not just going to be a one-way traffic where we get to talk, and we leave. So blended learning in sense of you get to watch videos in between, you get to do hands-on session, that's labs in between, and we'll get to have discussion in between, such that we just have different approach to the training. So right now for the Windows virtual desktop, I'm going to bring up a video that we would watch. So 1 minute as I share that quickly. Okay, 1 minute please. I want to bring up the video for us. Please let me know once you see my screen and you are able to hear as well. Okay. Please, can you all see my screen? I've started sharing. Could you please respond if you're able to see my screen?
Um,
Okay.
Welcome to Windows Virtual Desktop Essentials. If your organization is looking for a more efficient, productive, and secure approach to desktop virtualization, in the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through Microsoft's Windows Virtual Desktop solution on Microsoft Azure. It offers a fully managed desktop virtualization solution in the cloud. And the good news is it works with all your apps and devices. As you can expect, we have full featured native client support for Windows, Mac, iOS, and Android, as well as new HTML5 support so that you can access remote desktops and apps from almost any modern browser. So why desktop virtualization? Well, for a while, it's been looked upon as a solution for enabling central management and security of your users' desktops and also with less IT management overhead. Now, this approach separates your operating systems, data, and apps from local hardware, running them instead separately on a remote server. Now, the main appeal is that you can separate the compute environment from user devices so that the risk of confidential information being left on a personal device is greatly reduced. You can also make sure that your virtual machines run in close proximity to apps and services that connect to your data center or the cloud. End users have the freedom to connect with any device over the internet, and for IT, you don't have to worry as much about the device that's connecting so long as the network connection is secure. That said, standing up a desktop virtualization environment has traditionally been expensive and also complex. Users have often lacked the productivity experience of a locally provisioned desktop, and it can take weeks and sometimes months to get a successful implementation up and running. Now, with Windows Virtual Desktop, all of this complexity goes away. We give you a remote desktop infrastructure that contains the roles that you would have had to manage at scale. Things like your gateway, broker, diagnostics, load balancing, and more as a fully managed service on Azure. All your VMs in the Windows Virtual Desktop service communicate over a secure outbound connection, and you benefit from unlimited capacity. And you can also choose any size VM in Azure and vary the density of users based on the workload. We also give you more choice in how you distribute users across those VMs. For example, you're not limited to a Windows Server OS in cases where you want to assign more than one user per virtual machine. With Windows 10 Enterprise Multi-Session, for example, you can gain efficiencies by having multiple users on a single VM, and unlike multi-session Windows Server implementations, it has a support for modern apps like OneNote and Office 365 apps, and we're going to talk more about that in a minute. Importantly, you still have full control over VHD images, and you can use pre-built images in Azure or bring your own custom images. You can deploy a full desktop, remote apps, or both, and of course, you can scale up or scale down as needed while paying only for what you use. Now, for users, things get even better. Now there's no compromise between their virtual desktop productivity experience and what they would experience if they had a locally hosted desktop running on their PC. It's the same. Now in Windows 10, for example, your full collection of apps, whether they're Win32 line of business apps or UWP apps, those will run. Apps are fully integrated with the start menu. You can pin them to your taskbar, and the only indication the app is virtual is through the glyph. You can copy, paste, or snap apps side to side. They look and feel like local apps. And you don't even need to be on a PC. You can also be on a Mac, iPad, iPhone, your Android phone, or even the browser. The experience is going to be the same. What's more, the integration with FS Logic's technology and Windows Virtual Desktop makes the experience of working with stateful apps painless. Now, for example, you can fire up Outlook and be productive right away without waiting for the mailbox to populate. Now, this is because as a user, your profile data is containerized in a separate virtual disk, and that's going to attach in real time to any session on any VM right as you log in. So it feels like your inbox and all your local files are persistent as if they're running from the local C drive. Now, OneDrive files on demand also benefit from FS Logics. Users have full access to their files stored in OneDrive and File Explorer, so their on-demand files are always available and launch right away. Behind the scenes, the OneDrive Sync client and Windows 10 Enterprise Multi-Session work together to support OneDrive files on demand. WVD utilizes the default 1 terabyte storage that users have as part of their Office 365 subscription to let OneDrive cache their most recently accessed files. Now, this means that when a user selects an on-demand file, it immediately hydrates using the high-speed network and infrastructure across the Microsoft cloud to ensure that files move as fast as possible to become locally available. And of course, you can ensure that data never lives on the consuming device by configuring information protection controls, and you also have complete auditability of your environment. That set identity is the cornerstone of the user experience and also protecting your data. Azure Active Directory or Azure AD unlocks a secure, consistent sign-on experience for users with the ability to roam from device to device. And it ensures that only the right people have access to apps and data. You can also configure multi-factor authentication. This lets you take advantage of conditional access controls that determine access based on who you are, your device, the types of apps you're accessing, and your location. Now, Windows Virtual Desktop even supports passwordless authentication approaches, including biometrics, such as with Windows Hello. Now, beyond user authentication, Azure AD also allows you to manage admin privileges with role-based access controls that govern your Azure resources. If you're already using Azure or using Office 365 or any other Microsoft services, you already have an Azure AD. If not, there are numerous options available to sync Azure AD with your organization's directory service. You can learn more about this in the preparation episode coming up on Microsoft Mechanics. Now, you can manage WVD from within the Azure Portal along with all your other Azure services. And there are a few additional areas where Windows Virtual Desktop really help drive operational efficiencies for your virtual desktop environment. As I mentioned before, you can assign multiple users to a single VM using a client OS, not a server OS. Now, Windows Virtual Desktop uniquely breaks away from the one user per VM model of the past for client operating systems to deliver the only Windows 10 multi-session experience. Now, this is still supported, but increases your overhead. So for example, in a one VM per user model, you typically size each of the user's VMs based on anticipated peak usage. But in typical work days, a task or an office worker will rarely consume peak capacity of that VM. Now, with a multi-user model, you can deploy a single VM with sufficient CPUs and RAM to host several users on a single virtual machine. Now, this reduces your resource requirements significantly while providing a great user experience. Next, as I mentioned earlier, you can assign collections of VMs, which we call host pools, to specific users. Now, this could be by department. And what that means is if one department needs VMs with more horsepower, such as your creative design team, that might require fast GPUs, you can select the right VMs for their needs. Now, we also give you the options to load balance users on your virtual machine host pools. So for best performance, you can configure breadth mode. Now, that evenly allocates your users across the host pool for your workload. And if you want to optimize for cost savings, you can configure your VMs for depth mode load balancing. And in this mode, the load balancer fully allocates users on a single VM before moving to the next one. And with our scaling tools, you can automate provisioning of additional VMs as needed once a specified threshold is met to support incoming demand. And we also have pre-built Azure Resource Manager templates available to create and update your host pools consistently. That said, though, one of the biggest areas where you can reduce your overall running costs is with storage. Using Onedrive available in virtualized scenarios, it's possible to have terabytes of files per user in an Office 365 service and to not incur additional storage costs. Now, the combination of the virtual machine infrastructure hosted in Microsoft's cloud and the connection to unlimited OneDrive storage is both fast and bottomless. Now, this enables you to also provision smaller virtual machines and storage footprints per user to save costs while still providing best-in-class file access performance. And with the addition of Azure Files, you can centralize your organization's file shares in Azure using Azure File Sync. This can be used to sync and migrate on-premises file share data to Azure and accelerate access to content from your WVD session hosts. Finally, the separation of user profiles from virtual machines using FSLogix helps reduce your overall data storage footprint and costs without compromising performance or app compatibility. That was a quick overview of Windows Virtual Desktop on Microsoft Azure. This allows you to take a secure and efficient approach to centrally managing your PC and device estate without compromising your user productivity inside your organization. What's more, if you still need to run Windows 7 desktops, WVD offers the unique advantage of allowing you to run them in the cloud for up to 3 years without having to pay for extended security updates, all past the January 14th, 2020 end of support date. You can also migrate your existing RDS deployments and use your existing licensing to bring those environments to WVD. So next, please continue to watch our series for hands-on guidance on the steps to prepare, deploy, and optimize Windows Virtual Desktop for your organization.
All right, ladies, thank
Thanks for
you.
watching.
Thank you very much. I'm sure you saw that video. I'll also share the link in the meeting chat for those of us that might want to take time to go over it again. Let me drop it in the meeting chat. Okay. Okay. So in a layman English, let me summarize that video that we have just watched. When it comes to WVD, which we refer to as Windows Virtual Desktop, is actually a cloud platform service, just like we heard in the video, and it's actually for virtualizing desktop and apps. So our familiar apps that we have on our desktop machine, or should I say PC, something like that, it provides that for you on the cloud. So it gives you this simplified virtual desktop management where it can offer multi-sessions of Windows 10 precisely. So I'm sure we know about VM, that's virtual machine. We know we can deploy a VM, and the VM can have an image of Windows Server or Windows client, whether Windows 10 or thereabout. Now, the Windows virtualized desktop in this instance will give us this multi-session of Windows 10, whereby one particular VM can be assigned to many users, which means instead of one user per VM, you can have, many users to a VM where they can run multi-sessions of Windows 10. That's practically the breakdown. Now, this actually is different, totally different from the remote desktop that we are familiar with. Now, for remote desktop, yes, it's also a virtualization service, but in remote desktop, it allows maybe user or client to RDP into a particular session. So that's and the management is also different. So what makes WVD unique is the multi-users Windows 10 session that it allows. That's what makes it unique from the you just spinning up a VM and having a Windows 10 image on it. That way, just like we watched from the video, you'll be able to see all the desktop apps. You can even use it in the HTML mode. I don't know if we have question for that. Maybe unique clarity on my any question before we move on. Any question, please? All right, please. And yes, please. Okay, so in the absence of no question, I would move on. So let's talk about Azure Networking Service. Azure Networking Service. So we have the Azure VNet, Azure VPN, the Azure Express routes. Okay, so just like what we have here on the screen. So let's talk about VNet, which we refer to as Azure Virtual Network. Now, this virtual network is, we can refer to it as an isolated network that is within the Microsoft Azure cloud. Okay, now it's a representation of our on-premises network on the cloud, and this is usually it works with a dedicated subscription, which means before you can use a virtual network, there's a need for you to have a subscription. And just like what we have here on the screen, it says it enables Azure resources to communicate with each other, the internet, as well as on-premises network. So what we are saying in essence is we can use it to create like a dedicated private cloud, only VPNet, and we can use we can have VNet communicate directly and securely in the cloud. We can also use it to this VNet. We can use it to extend data center by building VPNs, which we'll be talking about next. That's the virtual private network gateway. We'll be talking about that. And we can also use VNet to deploy hybrid cloud. Okay, that's the essence of the Azure networking service. Now let's look at VPN. What is this VPN? Now for VPN, it's used to send encrypted traffic between an Azure virtual network and an on-premises location over the public internet. So in essence, what we are saying here is that the VPN gives us room so we can connect. So let me give a basic example of what we can relate with. So for instance, probably let's say school, for instance. So school, people get to go to school, and use the maybe network, the corporate network in the school to work and all. Now, due to COVID, people are advised to work from home. Okay, and yet because of what they need to do, they still need to utilize applications from the corporate using the corporate network. So what one can do is one can actually deploy a VPN such that through that VPN you will be able to get into the organization's network, which in this example I'm using is a school network. Okay, that way you'll be able to connect directly, not just school. I just use that as an example. Even organizations, you're working with a particular organization. When you go to the office in the morning, what it means is you connect to that organization's domain. Okay, such that you have internet provided and you're able to use apps. Now, because probably your devices are joined to the domain, what I mean by that is your devices, the company resources that is being given to you, maybe laptop or desktop that the organization gives to you, is joined to the organization's domain. Okay, that is joined to the organization's network. Now, because of COVID, people are unable to go to work, or maybe there's a new plan that okay, you get to work from home for a week and the other week you come to the office. Now when you're working from home, don't forget that you will be using your own private network, probably your modem, uh, fiber one, MTN, Glo, Airtel, depending on the network you have, or maybe other broadband that you've subscribed to. Now that way you are not yet connected to your organization's network. For you to be able to connect to your organization's network, you need this, which is called the VPN. Okay, so this VPN is what enables you, and we have two types. We have the point to site and we have the site to site. For now, I wouldn't be going in depth since we are still in the basic. This is just for us to understand, these basics with regards to um, virtual networks. So this VPN gateway, again, if I'm going to summarize it and define it to us, I would say the VPN gateway is a type of networking device that actually connects two or more devices, or that connects to one network in a VPN infrastructure. If I'm going to, summarize it for us that way. Now, this VPN gateway can be things that we are familiar with. It can be the likes of our router, it can be servers, it can be firewall, it can be, you know, those devices that just enables connectivity. Okay, and like I said we can have a site to site, and we can have what's it called, a point to site VPN. Okay, so we also have something called Azure Express Route. From what we can see here on the screen, this actually extend our on-premises network into Azure over a private connection that is facilitated by a connectivity provider. Okay, so in essence, the like you said, just in simple English, the express route will let you extend your on-premises network into the Azure infrastructure, or should I say Microsoft Cloud. That's exactly what it does. Okay, such that with Express Route, you'll be able to establish connection to Microsoft Cloud services like our Azure. In fact, even services like M365, like CRM, and so on and so forth, all those other services. So because we are focusing here on Azure, I would say this Express Route would help us to establish connection from our on-premises to our Microsoft Azure. That's what our Express Route does, and these are our basic Azure networking services that we need to know. Okay, I also have a demonstration here on how to create a virtual network. Now, for the benefit of those that are just joining us, I promised us a step-by-step guide for this lab, and this has already been uploaded on our channel. So from the channel, you can go to the files, you will see a folder called Azure Labs, and within that folder, you would see different files for different labs that you can work with. Okay, so let's quickly see a demonstration on how to create a virtual network. Okay, let me bring that up. Okay, so again, because it's Azure, we get to do that on Azure Portal. We can choose virtual networks from the resources of our Azure menu. Now we'll go ahead to add, and of course, don't forget we have to add our subscription. We can create a new resource group if we want, or we can even use an existing resource group. So for those of us that will be creating a new resource group, if that's the case, we'll click on create, give it a name, and need to create. Now we need to give the virtual networks a name, just like what we have here. So the name has to be any name that you can think of, and give resource group. Now the next thing is the IP address. So for the IP address, we need to create IP address. So there's usually an IP address class, just like what you can see. So when you're creating, to give you an idea of what you can create, and after that, you need to create a subnet. Okay, and you give it a range still within the IP address that you have selected. Okay, once that is done, you can click add such that you have your subnet also created. Now, after that is done, you go ahead to review and create. If the validation is passed, it will allow creation. If not, it will show you an error. Okay. So once it's completed, you can go to the resource and you would see the virtual network you've created. Remember, we said it helps us to establish a connection. So we're trying to, create a VM. But for us, because we've created a VM before, I'm sure this is not new to us. So this here is just trying to create a VM for us so that we can use that to establish that virtual network connection. So this is not new, and for those of us that are actually joining for the first time, creating this might be new, but you have access to the previous videos. Okay, so once all the necessary information is being filled, don't forget this one is creating VM. So for the virtual networks, you see here that there's an already created network. So we can review and create. So once the deployment is completed, we go to resource. So right now we want to create another virtual machine. So for us to be able to establish this connection that we have, we need at least two VMs in order to do so. Remember, I said it can allow services like VM with VNet to communicate directly with each other in the cloud. So we're trying to create those two VMs such that the VNet can communicate with each other. So we've created the first VM. Now this is the second VM creation so that we can establish that connection. All these things, this demo we are watching and what I'm saying, the step-by-step guide is included in the file that you can follow through if you're doing it on your own. Okay, so take notes. So for public IP, we already have the default and you can as well create if you wish. So click on review and create. Let's create the second VM. And after that, we'll now, allow the connections for the VNet, since we can use VNet to establish connections. So here, going to all resources, we'll see the first VM that we created. Go to the overview of that VM such that we connect. RDP, download files, open connect, and enter username and password to RDP to the VM that is being created. Now once that is done, it will open this new VM. Okay, so here is launching a PowerShell session, which we still talk about our PowerShell as we move on. Okay, so here we want to use PowerShell to be able to, establish network. So rather than what's it called, Portal, one can equally use PowerShell as well, to for the session. So the same thing, we've connected to VM1, we'll also connect to VM2, the same manner. Once we've entered the username and password, then we can connect to the second VM. So it opens the same page. So also using the PowerShell to check the connectivity. Okay. Get back to our VM1. Connect to the VM1. Enter username. Okay. Yes. So the same thing. So I want to ping VM2 from VM1. So you see that from VM1 you can ping VM2, which means there's traffic, and it's able to establish traffic from it. So for this is the demonstration of virtual network. Don't forget that we did not do anything like point to site or site to site. That's different thing entirely. What we simply did is we created a virtual network. We created two virtual machines and we tested the connection of the virtual networks. I don't know if there is any question before we move on to Azure Storage Service. Any question, please? Any question? Okay, I'll take our silence as no question for now. Let's go ahead to talk about the Azure Storage Service. So for Azure Storage Service, when we say storage service, what does it even mean? Okay, so the storage service here, it includes data services like our container storage blob, like what we can see on the screen, our Azure Files, our disk storage. There are even other ones that are not listed here, the likes of Azure Queues, Azure Table. But don't forget that this particular training is still foundation, so we get to go through basics. Now, for container storage blob, it's actually you can it allows unstructured data. It allows unstructured data, the likes of images, likes of videos, etc. It allows unstructured data. Now, this is optimized for storing massive amounts, just like I said, of this unstructured data, such as text and no. When we say unstructured, I think I've mentioned that before. Unstructured is, let me just say anything. When I say something is unstructured, anything like communication, like media, business application, website, social media. Those things that you can think of, the things that are humanly generated, we usually refer to them as unstructured. The likes of sensor data, the likes of satellites, imaginary, and so on and so forth. We refer to those as unstructured data. And this container storage blob actually allows us, to store such unstructured data. Now, why do people even use this blob storage in the first place? That's this container storage. Like I said, it's used for the unstructured data, like what we've mentioned, because it allows you to store those massive or those large amounts of data. That's the essence. We also have disk storage. Now, this disk storage basically comes with our virtual machines. You can see, we've deployed virtual machines. I'm sure we've seen the labs and all. When we are creating a virtual machines, we get the access to also provide a disk storage. Now, the Azure Files, which is the last one here, this is a highly available network file share that can be used to access using standard server, that's SMB protocol. So we have, Azure Files as well. Now, the Azure Files, basically, people utilize it when they want to do a lift and shift. There's something called lift and shift. So if you want to do a lift and shift of an application to the cloud, probably there's an existing file that is being used on premises and you want to use that same file on the cloud. You can use the Azure file, to maintain that lift and shift, and you have that within the Azure premises or the Azure cloud. Okay, or you can even use it when you want to store maybe debugging tools that needs to be accessed from probably different virtual machines. That's another way or where you can use this. So in essence, for us to understand the Azure files better, you can mount an Azure file share from your cloud or from your on-premises deployment. Okay, remember I said it allows us to do a lift and shift in this system. So those are about the Azure Storage Service. Now there's something called the Azure Storage Access Tiers. Okay, we have the hot, cool, and archive. Now these access tiers, they help us. You can for storage. So what it does is the data that you frequently use, that you use from time to time, is being categorized under the hot tiers because you access that data most of the time. You access those data frequently. So because it is in use, we refer to it as we categorize it under Azure Storage hot tiers. Okay, we also have cool tiers. Now this cool tiers is actually for storing, yes, large amount of data, but that is infrequently used. Okay, just like what we have here on the screen, that is infrequently used, not something you access every time or every now and then. It's just infrequent. Once in a while you get to access. So that's such data are stored and you can categorize them under cool tiers. And finally, we have the archive. Now, this archive tier is optimized for data that can, tolerate long hours or that you've seldom use, if I can use that word, that is seldom used. Now you can actually switch between these tiers at any time. If for instance you have a file that you use from time to time, okay, and is in hot, and after a while you do not require to use such file anymore, you can um switch to put those file in a cool tier. Now there's even something called the Azure Blob Storage Lifecycle Management. I think I just want to mention that while we are here. Now, this life cycle management is actually a new feature within the Azure storage. And what it does is you can use it to define a custom policy. Why I brought up that lifecycle management is because I mentioned you can switch between any of these access tiers. So rather than doing that manually, you can have a policy, you can have a custom policy that helps you to switch from one tier to another. Okay, so you can have, for instance, a simple policy that will specify all your blobs that is under a particular Azure storage. Okay, now you can specify the policy to say, okay, let this particular data be in hot tier. Okay, now once any data that is not being accessed within um, a period of time and all that is infrequently used, you can move such data to a cool tier. Okay, and if it's in cool tier and is not being accessed maybe for the next 90 days or 180 days, you can move to archive. Why? Because it's not frequently accessed, it's not frequently used. That way you are able to even manage costs. Okay, with this live storage and the custom simple custom policy that is being made, you are able to even manage costs. So that's with regards to Azure storage access tiers. I don't know if we have any question before we also do a walkthrough. Any question, please? Please, are we understanding so far so good? Besides, I understand that for Kemi missed a class before this, and but that's not a problem, Kemi. The fact that you missed a class, this is the continuity. So there are some things we did in that last class that has to do with Azure VM, app services, and the likes. For blob storage, it's actually new, so it's something you can easily flow with. And the same thing goes for Justina, who is also joining this class as well. So it's something that you can flow with because we're just doing it afresh. So I don't know if you have any question before I take us through the walkthrough, please.
For
Okay.
now, I don't have any question.
All right. Thank you, Kemi. So in the absence of no question, let's take a walkthrough to create blob storage. I'll bring that up now. Okay, let me go back. Okay, so to create the blob storage, of course, we connect to our Azure Portal because that's where we get to do all the things. We select the storage account and we go ahead to add. Now, this cannot be missed. It's usually the basics where you have to include your subscription, create a new resource group or use an existing resource group, provide basic informations about this storage account that you're about to create. So provide a name, location, which has to do with the region. Okay. Now for performance, do you want to make use of standard performance or premium performance? So you get to select that. Okay. Now this standard or premium has to also do with costs as well as some other benefit. So once the validation is passed, you can create. Then you can go ahead, storage account. You will see the newly created storage account that you have created. So let's go to containers. Create a new container within that storage account. So we have container 1, which is just created based on the name. Now you can upload files. So we want to upload a blob. I'm sure we know what blob is, right? We call it binary large objects. That's what we refer to as blob. So here is trying to, once it has been uploaded, so this time around is an image. Remember I told you unstructured data, blob stores unstructured data like images, like websites, and so on and so forth. So in this instance, we utilized an image. Okay. So here, common problems, it's just navigating us through, the things we can do within this storage account. So you can see activity like an insight or metrics of what is being done. So it's a very short one, and we can move on. Okay, if time permits, we usually end the session by 12. If time permits, I can use my environment to even walk us through one of the lab. So what we are doing right now is just demonstration. The lab in itself is something you still have to have your own hands-on session. So if time permits, we can still go through that, as well. So next here is we have Azure Database Services. Azure Database Services. Now for the database services, we have, here we have the Azure Cosmos DB database. We have SQL database, Azure database for MySQL, Azure database for Postgresql. So let's look at each of them one after the other. Now for Azure Cosmos DB, this is actually a database service that is globally distributed, just like what we have here on the screen. Okay, so it allows you to manage your data even if that data is scattered, or even if it's, when I mean scattered, like it's in different locations throughout the world, or is in different data centers. So with Azure Cosmos DB, you can manage this data by keeping them in a data center that is scattered. So what it does is it will provide the tools that you need to scale, that you need to scale, both for the global distribution as well as maybe some computational resources. Now, these tools are usually provided by Azure, by Microsoft Azure. So again, the database, when we say database, it's more or less like a storage. Let me use that. So let me use that word in a layman English that we can understand. Okay. Now this Cosmos DB also provides comprehensive service level agreement, such that there's an agreement for your throughput, there's an agreement for latency, there's an agreement for availability, as well as some consistency. So the Azure Cosmos DB supports there's something called schema. Okay, it supports a schemaless data, wherein you can use the feature to store data that are updated and maintained by users around the world. So it doesn't have to be in the same location. People can get to use this Azure Cosmos database, from around the world. Okay. Next here is we have the Azure SQL database. Now for Azure SQL database, we usually refer to this as a relational database. Just like what we have here is a database as a service, and is usually on the latest stable version of MySQL server. But then let's take a look at this. Now this Azure SQL data, I'm sure we're familiar with the regular SQL server. Okay, there's actually a difference between both. Now for the Azure SQL, this is like one database that can host several other databases for different customers. But your SQL server is actually database for only objects that are on your server. So let's assume you deploy the VM and you make that particular VM a server. Now that's server, you can utilize it for an SQL server. So what differs between the Azure SQL and the SQL Server here is the fact that, again, the Azure SQL, you can host several databases on them, while SQL Server is just like is dedicated to only objects that are on that server. Now, another difference between the Azure SQL and the regular SQL Server that you must have heard about is the fact that the Azure SQL utilizes TDS protocol. There's something we call TDS protocol, which we refer to as tabular data stream. Okay, while the SQL server that some of us, or if not most of us, are familiar with, that uses a TCP/IP protocol for communication. Okay, and also when it comes to management, for the management and administration for the Azure SQL database is usually very easy, to manage. While for SQL Server, the setup is, quite difficult quite difficult to set up and administer. Okay, so those are just, some kind of differences between the Azure SQL as well as the SQL server that we're familiar with. Another one here is the Azure database for MySQL. Okay, so for this is a fully managed SQL database service for app developers. So which means it is focused specifically for app developers. They are the one who utilizes this MySQL service. Now what it does is it will let you run managed database instance, as well as it will include scalability, it will allow backups and high availability. So what this particular Azure database for MySQL does is it will help us to undo majority of the database management compatibilities, the likes of our backups, the likes of patching, all of these and the security that comes with it. It helps us. That's why on the screen here it says it's a fully managed. It does all of these parts. And finally, we have the Azure database for Postgresql. For this particular service, it's an open source. That's one thing you should know. It's an open source, and most people, kind of prefer it. It's like I can say it's widely accepted and adopted, and it is used by several organizations to run workloads that include even this Microsoft Azure that we are trying to learn. Now for this PostgreSQL, that's the Azure database for PostgreSQL, what it does again is, yes, is a managed, is a relational database, just like what we can see on the screen, but is the managed implementation of the service that is being run on the Azure infrastructure. So what this does is it will allow us, or it will allow customers, or users, as case may be, to develop application at pace using this open source technology. That is alongside some other elements like our tools, like drivers, like libraries, such that we are able to take control of the instances. So that's the Azure database post SQL. So here, just don't forget that we are still talking about the basics of all these things. So I'm not going to overwhelm us with too many information or going deep dive. As we move on in the course of the training, some of these things that mentioned earlier, we will still get to go deep dive into them to understand better. But what you should know right now with regards to the Azure database services is that we have all of these options. We have the likes of Cosmos Database, we have the Azure SQL Database, we have the Azure Data SQL, Azure Database for MySQL, which is targeted towards app developer. We have the Azure Database for PostgreSQL, which is an open source that can be utilized with Microsoft Azure. So these are all the 4 database services that we have. Also, we have something called Azure SQL Managed Instance. Now, for this managed instance, what it does is it allows existing SQL Server customer to lift and shift their on-premises application to the cloud with minimal application and database changes. So what does that mean? What it means in essence is that manage instance. Okay, let's even look at what is manage instance, so to say. Let's understand what manage instance is. Now, this manage instance is usually hosted in Azure and is placed within our network. So it has most of the SQL Server features that are inclusive within it. I think the SQL feature for 2017, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, now this feature, of course, it would exclude some on-premises features like the Windows login or maybe some other things. But then what it basically does is it will enable you to move to the Azure cloud anything that you or any database that you have on your on-premises, just like what is being written on the screen. So it will allow you to move your database on your on-premises SQL Server instance. That's what it does. Now, again, the Azure SQL Managed Service instance, there are usually three different types. We have something called the standalone database. We have something called Elastic Pool, and we have something called Managed Instance, which I've just explained to us. Now, this full SQL Server instance with instance level is designed for easy migration. So in summary, or in a simple English, it just allows, easy migration from on-premises to the cloud. Okay. Here you will see here it said fully manage an evergreen platform as a service. It preserves all past compatibilities such as automatic patching, virtual update, automated backups, and high availability. And finally, also it does exchange existing license for discounted rates on SQL managed stars using the. That's just plenty English. One thing I would like us to take home, or one thing we should have at the back of our mind, that this Azure SQL Managed instance is designed is for migration of most of our on-premises database to the cloud. That's why here the definition here is saying allowing existing SQL Server customer to lift and shift. That is, it helps you to migrate, to move this on-premises database application to the cloud. And the cloud here is our Microsoft Azure. So in simple English, that should be our take home. Okay, easy migration from on-premises to the cloud. And what are we migrating? We're actually migrating the on-premises database, to our Azure cloud. I don't know if we have any question, please. Any question? Any question? I think we are gradually
Oh,
moving towards the end. Okay, so in the absence of no question, um, we can also, you know, see how we can create a SQL database and query that database. I'm going to bring up a demonstration. After the demonstration, probably we can now do some labs. Since we just have, you know, two of you here, maybe I can use that moment to go back and take any question or some things that you want to understand from the previous class. I think we can still have some time to do that, although we have less than 30 minutes, maybe about 25 minutes thereabout, but I believe I can still do that for us. All right, please. So let me bring up the uh, demonstration, the lab demonstration, please. 1 minute, let me bring that up. But while I'm trying to get that up, please, any question, maybe from the previous training or something you came across, or just anything that you want to ask, please. Okay, no question. All right, 1 minute. Let me get the labs. All right, rather than doing demonstration, let's do something different. Do we have our, can we access our, what's it called, Azure Portal? Let's do the step-by-step guide together. What do you think? Rather than the demonstration, that way we can look at it, step by step together. How about that? Now you've done demonstration. Let's see if we can do the steps together. Hello, is this something you can do, where you are right
I, I
now?
can't I
Or,
can't do that right
okay, you
because
can't do
I'm
that
not on
right
my
now.
system.
Okay. All right, that's fine. So don't forget, you still have access to those labs. I've uploaded even up to the point of SQL database. Okay, so if that's the case, then let me just bring the demo on. I was avoiding, doing too many demos and all, but it's fine since you have. Let me bring up the demo for database. Okay, I'm unable to find that here. No problem. Let me use my environment. Okay, so let me use my own environment. Don't forget, you always go to portal.azure.com. Then it will require you to sign in. So I'll be signing in with my own environment. Okay, may be different for you. I'm actually using the Microsoft Authenticator, so to enable me go passwordless. Okay, all right. So it takes us to the landing page, and here we can create our database. So what we'll be doing right now is I'll go to all services, then I'll select for database. Okay, databases. I can select SQL database, this one. Okay. Another thing you can do if you don't want to go through this route is you can search here and do SQL database, and it brings the SQL databases for you. Okay. So either way, whether you use the search bar or you come through all services, either way you will still see SQL databases, and it takes us to the SQL databases page. So what we want to do is we want to create afresh, and to do so we can click on either create SQL database, or we can do add SQL database. Either way it works fine. Okay, so once we do that, it will give us this page to input. Don't forget, you should always select your subscription. So I have two subscription here. I'm going with this. Now, resource group. You can create a new resource group, or you can use an existing resource group. I know I have an existing resource group for textilers, so I'll be selecting that. Now, for database name, we can give the database a name. So I'll go with the format textilers DB. Then for servers, so I can go ahead to create a new server. So what I'll do is I'll click on create new because I'm just trying to create a new server. So I need to give this server a name, and the name must be unique. So I'll still go with my regular text stylers server. Okay, once I've given it a name, server admin login. Okay, so I can still maintain the same thing, probably so that I don't forget or thereabout. I can maintain the same thing to say textiler server. Okay, let me put it user, or let me make it simple, textilers user. So that's my admin login. So I'm here. I'm supposed to give you the password, which I'll be doing. No, let me start from here. Sorry, please. For password, then I need to confirm the password. Don't forget your password complexity, alphanumeric symbol, uppercase, lowercase, and those various characters. Okay, so once it matches, it's going to ask for location. Okay, I can use any of this location, but I think your subscription does not have access to create server in the selected region. So in case you come across such error, you can select another region. That's not a problem. Just read through it and you would know why you're unable to use it. So based on the kind of subscription I have, I cannot create a resource in East US. So all I have to do is to select another location, then click OK. Now, once that is done, it's letting us know that we have already created. Now, it's asking us if we want to use SQL Elastic Pool. Let's leave it as no. Okay. Then our compute plus storage, let's leave it as the default, the general purpose. Then we can go ahead to go to next so that we can view what's within networking. Okay. So for network connectivity, here we can choose, here it's saying no access. So let's select public endpoints. I understand that you're not, some of us are not doing it, but you can revisit this video or you can even use the lab guide I have uploaded for us. Okay, this is just me showing us so that we can have a complete training session. Okay, so again, the connectivity method, we are selecting public endpoint, and for the firewall rules, okay, we can allow Azure service and resource to access the server. Yes, we select that. Then add current IP address. No, let's leave it as this default since we do not have. Now let's take a look at the next um, setting. So here, enable Azure Defender. Let's leave it as the default. Let's not make any changes. Now let's go on to additional settings. Now the additional settings here is asking us to use existing data. We have none. Let's use sample since we're just trying it for the first time. Now for collation, let's leave it as the default, and already it's grayed out, so won't be able to change it since we are using sample. Okay, now once this is done, we can go ahead to create. The next one here is tags, but for now we are not tagging any resource. Don't forget that the tagging is just to enable us have an organized environment and tag it to a particular with department or resource. So we're not doing anything with tag. We just go ahead to review and create. So it's going to give us deployment is in progress. Once it's completed, we would know. If we have done anything wrong, then it's going to throw an error, such that we can redeploy again. Okay, so deployment is still in progress. I don't know if we have any question while this is ongoing. Any question, ladies?
No.
All right. So let's just hold on. Sometimes it takes a while. So this is still in progress. So while that is going on, let's move on. Here is saying explore the Azure Marketplace. I wasn't actually an Azure Marketplace. Okay, this marketplace allows users, customers, to find, to try, to purchase, to provision application and services from hundreds of leading service providers, which are all certified to run on Azure. So you have the open source container platform, you have the virtual machines and database images, you have application build and deployment softwares, you have developer tools, and you have over 10,000 plus listing in the marketplace. And yes, we have come to the end of the training. So there's room for question and answer. Let's take a look at what we are deploying if it's now completed. Still in progress. Deployment is in progress. Okay, so go to resource, and you see here that you have already created a database, SQL database. So this is a simple way or step on how to create database. Now let's go on to the exploring the Azure Marketplace. Okay, still using my environment. So here you have all the categories of things that you can create. Hall. Let me go to Hall. So this here you have all the categories. So depending on that resource, let's take for instance, let me do storage. So you see services. See, or you see marketplace. Let me click on marketplace that we can view all marketplace. So for storage, it will take us to the marketplace of all the services that are being listed. Now, these ones here are not just restricted to Microsoft Azure. You have other technologies. So depending on the ones you want to use. So we have tons and tons of them. You can see this is just one page of 50. That's why on the slide it's saying you have much more, over 10,000 plus listing. Okay, so you can get, if you want to deploy or create any resource or any thing whatsoever, you can get that from Marketplace. As I say, Azure Marketplace allows customers, just like our phone app, where if we need to get any application and all, we can easily go to Play Store, or depending on the kind of phone you're using though, either you go to App Store or Play Store. And even for our regular Windows system or PC, you can go to this Microsoft Store and all of it. So the same way, the same manner, the same idea, we have the Azure Marketplace. You can find any resource, you can purchase, you can provision application, you can do any of these things. Why? Because they are all certified to run on Azure. Let me bring it up one more time. So you have here. Now this marketplace, we have limited it to storage. So in case we don't want storage, let's say just list all. So under managed services, we can actually see more. So it's still loading. So we have a lot of things depending on what you want to do, depending on what you want to create. You have them in here and they can be created on Azure. Okay, so data preparation, knowledge mining, ML operationals, machine learning, artificial intelligence and machine learning, and so on and so forth. We have, host of them in here. So let's take a look at that of analytics still within Marketplace. You have the big data, you can see more. You have for data analytics to bring out to you and you can see more. This year, this classified 360, you would see how much you can utilize them. $1,000 per month, $2,004 per hour. Just depending on what you need it for, you can use any of those. So you have data insights, you have predictive analytics, real time, and so on and so forth. So the marketplace is large, and you can definitely see, all these resources that you are willing to deploy or create in the marketplace. I don't know if we have any question, please. Okay, so in the absence of no question, we have actually come to the end of this training. The next class will be starting a totally new module entirely. We have completed this module. So we'll be moving on to core solution and management tools. Those are the things we'll be looking at from next week, which is our next class, where we'll be say we'll be going through the Azure IoT service and some other things under the core solution and management tools. Okay, now before I call it a day, since we do not have question, I'd like to show us how we can remove our what's it called, subscription. So 1 minute, let me take us through. So that's for those of us that done the trial and we've actually linked our credit card. Okay, so what you need to do is you can type here subscription. It takes us to subscription. Now it will list the subscription you have, and you can click on that subscription. Now once you click on the subscription, you would see where you have payment methods. Payment methods. Now once you click on it, it will load the payment method you have. Now in a situation whereby you have linked your card, it will list that card that you are using there for you, and you can remove the card that you have. Okay, let's hold on and take a look. Okay, right now it's telling me that I do not have a payment method, which means in this particular subscription, I do not have a card linked to it. Again, it will list out the card. Once you click on it, you will see delete. That way, you have unlinked your credit card from this payment method. I don't know if we understand, please, for Kemi and maybe Justina,
I
because
understand that. I tried it that way like some minutes ago before the class started, but I was unable to. It was telling me I'm unable to remove that card.
okay,
So
I
like,
would have loved.
and then it
Okay,
said that it would direct me to the website. I went to the website again. I tried to do it again, but I couldn't unlink the card.
okay, good. So that's fine. Another thing you can do is, let me show you. You can create new support requests. Okay, so this way the support request will go to Microsoft. So I think it's even good, such that a technical support agent can help us cancel. So I think with this has to do with canceling the subscription. Okay, so thanks Kemi for that that you said out there. So for the benefit of others, you can create support requests. Now the reason why you're unable to do this on your own is you require an admin Microsoft to help you cancel this session, and trust me, it's not a problem. You'll be reached out to. So summary, you can put here cancel subscription. Okay, so issue type is under billing because it has to do with billing, or is not, it has nothing to do with quotas, so nothing. So if you look at the description saying billing, related to billing, invoices, payments, and all of it. Okay, so you can choose billing. Then it will ask you for the subscription. You have to select that particular subscription. Now problem type, it will load various problem types for you, so you can go through it so that you can choose the right one. Okay, so here you are not charged, your money wasn't charged, and we're trying to avoid you being charged, your credit card being charged after you have exited or the trial stuff. Although when this subscription has expired, it should notify you, get a notification. However, once it has reached 30 days and it has expired, to ask if you want to continue using your card or you want to unleak, it will definitely ask you. But just to be proactive, before it even gets to that stage, if you want to, you can remove. Now, warrant is not an issue of unexpected charges, is not an issue of VAT, is not an issue of, it's just basically, now you can choose payment or assistance with bill or payment. You just have all of these things here. So let's go ahead to choose payments. So problem here is, let's see, help me with supported currency and all. Okay, let me choose another one. 1 minute. Pricing. No, not pricing. Let me try this request refund. No, it's not a refund issue, actually, it's canceling. So let's leave it as this. Let's choose change or update payment method. So of course you're trying to cancel, so you click next. It will give you an idea like how you can do it on your own and thereabouts. Then you can click next, show you the details. Problem starts, payment method, if it's credit card, browser information, just those necessary things. Now the critical thing here is based on method. Do you want them to reach out to you by phone or you want them to reach out to you by email? Either way, you have to specify. If you're specifying email, okay, you have to put all the necessary information. And if you are specifying phone, you have to also input necessary information. Now, once that is done, you create and review. That way, a Microsoft technical support staff will reach out to you and ask you what you want to do. So you can simply mention you want to cancel your subscription. I'm not creating mine because I do not even have subscription yet. Let me check another service that I have. 1 minute. Let me check another one that probably I've linked my credit card to. No, I canceled one or something. 1 minute. Let me try and link one. I know it's almost time. It's just to show us how to, cancel that. Okay. Let me check this one. Subscription. Maybe I've even cancelled it. I know I linked one here. Okay, I don't have any subscription. I've cancelled it too. So I know. Okay, it has been cancelled because there was one I linked and I had to cancel it myself, and that was the same thing. Created a ticket, and I had a technical support person, call me and ask me what I want. I just mentioned I want to cancel my subscription. So they check your environment from there, cancel it, and give you a step on what to do next. So we have come to the end of this session. Thank you very much for your time. Once again, apologies for not being present last week due to some an unforeseen circumstance. And again, the lab guide for the lab so far that has been uploaded in the Teams channel. Let me show us once again before I end this class. So here from our own channel, this is Azure. You go to Files. Under Files, you see Course Exercise, and you see Azure Labs. So within the Azure Labs, you will see all the different labs that we have. Okay. So thank you very much for your time. Any question, please?
Hello,
In the
Tessie.
absence, yes, please.
Okay. Sorry for taking you back. The Azure storage blob, can it be
Yes,
created
please.
as a file saver? Like file
It,
saver and then
okay.
give user access to upload their files. Hello, did you get the
Files.
question?
No, no, not yet. Please help me clarify.
Okay, I mean the Azure storage blob.
Okay.
Sorry. I'm asking if it can be created as a file server, then we give users access to upload their files to the storage blob.
Okay. Okay, so what you can do, this storage blob that you're talking about is just, a method whereby you can have storage container. No. So what you can do is you can create a storage account. You can create a storage account. Now, this storage account is where you can have different files being stored on it. Now, this is the one you can give users access. Now, your user might want to either upload Bob, or they want to upload maybe any other kind of storage service. Maybe they want to upload Blob or files or whatever, but there's a need for you to have a storage account. I don't know if you get that. So it's that account that is
Yes.
required first of all.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, please. All right, thank you. Our time is, we're right on track. Please don't forget to do the labs. You will find it useful. Don't forget to utilize those links to do a personal study. Kemi, for that Udemy stuff, yes, it's something that is useful. Even the Azure benefit that we claimed, if you remember, the Azure Visual Studio, there's a plural site there that you have access to the plural site, and you can watch videos, you can learn like a personal development for yourself. Okay, and there's some Microsoft documentation that are included in the meeting channel that you can find useful too. This is not just for Kemi, it's also for everyone. Okay, thank you all for your time and see you next week.
Don't forget to upload the class that we missed, so because I'm really kind of lost today, but I know I'll catch up when I see the previous video.
All right, please. Yes, I would follow up with Foyin and it would help us with the upload. Thank
Thank
you.
you so
All right, thank you everyone. Thank you, Dolapo. Thank you, Justina. Thank you, Kemi. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Also.